What if I told you that a single 10-word sentence, uttered in a dimly lit radio studio back in 2023, was actually the opening salvo in a calculated multi-million-dollar war for the literal throne of global pop music? A war that has officially reached its absolute boiling point right now in May 2026. Cameras at the Met Gala just caught legendary billionaire icon Rihanna, completely neutralizing rising star Tyla with the most chilling, ice-cold red carpet snub in internet history, and the footage went viral within milliseconds. Was it just bad timing? Or are we witnessing the brutal public execution of a rising star's ego? The internet has officially fractured into two warring factions. On one side, the fiercely loyal Rihanna Navy is shouting from the digital rooftops that boundaries were crossed and respect must be paid. On the other side, Tyla's global fanbase is screaming that their girl is being systematically targeted by an insecure, aging American industry elite. Grab your popcorn and lock your doors because we are digging past the PR statements, the leaked TikTok cover-ups, and the backstage chaos to expose the real truth. Who is actually running the machine? Let's dive in. The internet loves a golden child until that golden child forgets who actually paved the highway they are currently speeding down on. To truly understand how we arrived at this absolute state of global digital warfare right now in May 2026, we have to look past the glitz of the red carpet and dissect the structural anatomy of a celebrity ego under construction. For the past 3 years, the mainstream media has been desperately looking for an heir to the pop throne. A fresh face to inherit the massive visual and cultural real estate left behind by icons who have transitioned from the recording booth to the corporate boardroom. Enter Tyla, a 17-year-old girl from Johannesburg who, back in 2019, was simply uploading bedroom covers onto the internet, hoping for a sliver of validation. But the narrative we are fed by public relations teams is rarely the narrative that operates behind closed doors. The public loves an overnight success story because it feeds the romantic illusion that talent alone can rescue you from obscurity and catapult you onto the global stage. We were told that she was just a normal girl with a dream, a unique voice, and a viral dance move that captivated the world. But if you actually follow the crumbs of this investigative trail, you quickly realize that the machinery was being built around her before the public even knew her name. By 2020, she hadn't just secured local representation. She had quietly accumulated a team of 3 high-powered managers stretching from South Africa all the way to the executive offices of Fax Records in New York City. This wasn't an organic viral moment. It was a meticulous, highly calculated corporate blueprint designed to manufacture a global superstar with industrial precision. The real trouble started when the ambition inside the room outgrew the reality of the metrics outside of it. When Tyla sat down with Just Incredible on Power 106 back in 2023, before her signature track became a multi-platinum global phenomenon, she was asked the standard, predictable interview question about her inspirations. A normal media-trained artist would have given the safe, generic response, listing icons out of a sense of standard industry etiquette. But instead, she looked directly into the microphone and dropped a statement that would permanently alter her career trajectory. She openly stated that she wanted to reach the exact same level of success as Rihanna, and then without blinking, added that she fully believed she could become even bigger than her. At the time, the comment passed under the radar as standard youthful confidence. The industry loves a hungry newcomer, and fans found it inspiring. But the internet never forgets a soundbite, and more importantly, the established elite never forgets a threat. The moment her music exploded globally and the American media machine began aggressively branding her as the next big thing, the tone within her camp underwent a massive, overnight shift that caught longtime music historians completely off guard. By the time she landed her high-profile cover story for Cosmopolitan magazine in April 2024, the humble, wide-eyed girl from the radio station was gone. When the journalist inevitably brought up the comparisons to the billionaire Fenty mogul, she completely flipped the script. She openly rejected the comparison, stating that people only tied her to something familiar, because they couldn't comprehend an artist who was doing something completely unprecedented. She explicitly told the world that the comparison could no longer be made because she was her own entity entirely. To her core fanbase, this was celebrated as a moment of supreme self-actualization. A young black woman claiming her identity and refusing to live in the shadow of a predecessor. But to the fiercely protective fanbase of the established elite, this looked like a textbook case of historical revisionism. It looked like a calculated flip-flop. The narrative among critics instantly soured. You used the blueprint of an icon to climb the ladder. You used her name to generate headlines when you were desperate for a single ounce of American attention. And the very second you achieve a baseline level of global notoriety, you attempt to erase the connection entirely to pretend you invented the wheel yourself. This perceived disrespect created a permanent fracture in the digital landscape, setting up a Cold War that was just waiting for a single match to explode. That match was officially struck during American election night in November 2024, a date that proved her team was severely out of touch with the global audience they were trying so desperately to monopolize. While the entire Western Hemisphere was glued to their screens watching a historic, high-stakes political shift take place, her social media accounts decided that exact moment was the perfect time to drop a highly produced teaser for her new music video. The backlash from American fans was instantaneous and brutal. They accused her of being profoundly insensitive, completely self-absorbed, and utterly incapable of reading a room. The defense from her international fans only amplified the tension, with one viral post aggressively stating that a South African artist shouldn't have to pause her entire global rollout just because Americans were losing their minds over a political vote. This single night solidified two distinct, uncompromising camps that refused to find common ground. On one side stood a highly defensive American audience that viewed her as a pampered manufactured product who lacked basic cultural awareness. On the other side stood an international base that viewed American fans as entitled bullies who believed the entire planet should revolve around their specific emotional calendar. The stage was set for a massive public reckoning, and the industry was just waiting for the perfect venue to let the gloves come off entirely. That venue turned out to be the red carpet of the Met Gala, where the unspoken tension finally spilled over into a visual confirmation that sent the entire internet into a tailspin. As the cameras rolled and millions of viewers watched the live stream, the billionaire pop icon walked onto the carpet, completely bypassed the rising star who was standing just a few feet away, and left her looking visibly stunned in front of the global press. Within hours, the clip was broken down frame by amateur body language experts, music theorists, and cultural commentators who all arrived at the exact same conclusion. The snub was entirely intentional. The damage control from the Rising Stars camp was deployed almost immediately, with a frantic explanation posted to social media claiming that the entire moment was just a massive misunderstanding caused by backstage domestic drama, involving her partner being overly friendly with an Italian fashion editor across the room. But the internet didn't care about the excuse, because the established icon was already preparing to deliver a masterclass in corporate warfare without saying a single word. When she uploaded her own official recap video from the event, she didn't address the rumors, she didn't issue a PR statement, and she didn't engage in a messy digital back and forth. Instead, she let the music do the talking, selecting a highly specific track to play in the background that instantly sent shockwaves through the entire industry infrastructure. The track blasting in the background of that recap video was none other than Who's Dat Girl by Tyla Star, a calculated audio placement that signaled a profound shift in the geopolitical landscape of the music industry. To the casual observer scrolling through their timeline, it was just a catchy song choice for a glamorous video edit. But to those who understand the intricate web of music business politics, this was a multi-layered chess move designed to completely destabilize a rising star's position. Tyla Star isn't just any contemporary. She is widely recognized as Tyla's chief continental rival, another young, powerhouse African artist breaking records on the global stage. More importantly, Tyla Star operates safely under the massive corporate umbrella of Roc Nation Management, giving her a direct line of sight to the established elite. By publicly elevating her direct competition at the exact moment the internet was analyzing a red carpet snub, the message was clear, precise, and devastatingly quiet. It was the ultimate demonstration of institutional power, a silent declaration that you do not get to claim you are bigger than the blueprint while the architect still owns the land you are building on. The fallout from this single audio choice sent the online ecosystem into an absolute state of emergency. Within 24 hours, the digital landscape was flooded with thousands of highly detailed analysis videos, conspiracy threads, and speculative timelines trying to map out the hidden metrics of this corporate feud. Rumors began circulating from anonymous industry insiders that the tension backstage at the Met Gala was far more severe than a simple case of bad timing or distracted glances. Leaked logistics reports from the event's seating coordination team suggested that a high-level game of diplomatic musical chairs had taken place behind closed doors, with representation from both camps actively negotiating to ensure their artists were never placed within breathing distance of one another during the main dinner. The explanation offered up by Tyla on TikTok, where she claimed she felt awkward simply because she thought her predecessor was caught up in a chaotic phone call with her partner regarding his deep conversation with Italian fashion editor Giovanna Battaglia Engelbert, was quickly dismantled by critics as a desperate, manufactured narrative designed to deflect from a painful professional reality. When you look closely at the leaked internal communications allegedly originating from executive circles within Epic Records, a much darker picture begins to emerge regarding the sheer amount of stress this controversy is causing the corporate backers. For years, the major label system has been hunting for an artist who could seamlessly package the vibrant, complex sounds of modern African music into a highly digestible, globally marketable format. They invested millions of dollars into ensuring that the infrastructure around this project was flawless. We are talking about top-tier, high-level corporate planning that involves pairing a young artist with seasoned hitmakers like Sammy Soso and orchestrating massive visual campaigns that mirror the exact stylistic choices of classic pop eras. When critics began pointing out that the creative direction in recent music videos looked almost identical to the dramatic lighting and sharp-eye styling of the historic "Where Have You Been" era from over a decade ago, the anxiety inside the executive offices reportedly reached an all-time high. It became increasingly difficult to sell the narrative of a completely unprecedented, self-made pioneer when the visual language being utilized felt like a direct copy of a formula that had already been mastered by someone else. The financial stakes attached to this reputational crisis are astronomical. With a highly anticipated sophomore album scheduled to drop on July 24th, introducing a heavily branded new sound dubbed a pop, the entire rollout is currently hanging in a state of profound vulnerability. The strategy was supposed to be flawless: secure a historic string of back-to-back Grammy Awards for Best African Music Performance, lock down massive corporate sponsorships, align the artist with legendary image makers like La Roche to completely dominate the high fashion space, and use that momentum to launch a global stadium tour. But instead of the public focusing on the musical metrics, the entire conversation has been completely hijacked by accusations of immense entitlement and industry manipulation. Internal financial projections allegedly show that if the core demographic of Western pop consumers decides to permanently align themselves with the established elite out of a sense of brand loyalty, the projected streaming and ticket revenue for the upcoming cycle could face a severe, multi-million-dollar deficit. The tension has created a profound cultural rift that stretches far beyond standard internet fandom. In South Africa, local audiences and media outlets are viewing the intense Western criticism as a thinly veiled form of cultural imperialism. To them, the relentless scrutiny over her terminology during that infamous British Vogue interview, where she accurately described her identity within the specific historical framework of her home country, is proof that the global market wants to extract the music and the aesthetic while completely erasing the actual cultural reality of the person making it. They see the sudden weaponization of the industry plant narrative as a hypocritical double standard, pointing out that every single major American pop icon in history was developed, funded, and aggressively pushed by a massive corporate machine. Why, they argue, is a young woman from Johannesburg being demonized for utilizing the exact same institutional tools that her predecessors used to conquer the world? Yet, the critics refuse to back down, digging up older industry data to prove that the meteoric rise was heavily artificial from its inception. They point to the unusual reality of a teenager securing meetings with legendary executives like Sylvia Rhone and Ezekiel Lewis before ever achieving a true, sustained track record of independent success. In the cutthroat world of the modern music business, independent artists spend years performing in empty venues and navigating treacherous distribution networks just to get a single email read by an A&R representative. To have the complete, unyielding backing of a major global powerhouse from day one, complete with international management teams operating across multiple continents, is a luxury that less than 1% of developing talent will ever experience. To the critics, this is the literal definition of a manufactured product, a corporate entity designed in a boardroom to capture a specific market share, who then had the audacity to publicly claim superiority over the very icons who spent decades bleeding for their independence. As the digital warfare continues to escalate, The silence from the rising star's primary creative circle has only added fuel to the fire. Instead of releasing formal press statements or engaging in traditional media damage control, her camp has chosen to double down on an attitude of complete detachment. While some industry analysts view this as a display of immense discipline and focus, critics are labeling it as profound arrogance. They argue that an artist who refuses to directly address her audience during a massive crisis of public perception is an artist who believes she is completely untouchable, insulated by the very corporate machine that built her. But in the volatile arena of modern pop culture, no one is truly untouchable, and the ground beneath this project is beginning to feel incredibly unstable as we move closer to the summer release dates. Every single social media post, every visual asset, and every public appearance is now being treated as a high-stakes battleground where the ghost of a decade-old pop legacy continues to loom incredibly large over a career that is desperately fighting to prove it can survive its own ambition. The hyperfixation on this standoff has reached a point where even the most minute corporate partnerships are being pulled into the line of fire, turning everyday brand management into a high-stakes geopolitical game. When a rising star secures a massive global ambassadorship with an international platform like Pandora, it is traditionally celebrated as a routine victory for their commercial portfolio. But in the current hypersensitive climate, critics are analyzing the timing of these announcements as defensive corporate counters designed to project an illusion of stability to nervous shareholders. Behind the scenes, the luxury fashion houses that traditionally compete to dress these icons for major public appearances are reportedly growing incredibly hesitant to pick a side. Stylists who operate at the absolute peak of the industry infrastructure, including visionaries like La Roche who are tasked with building a distinct visual identity for this new era, are finding themselves navigating a professional minefield where a single wardrobe choice can be interpreted by fan armies as a direct declaration of war against an established empire. This hyper-analysis has completely transformed the rollout of the upcoming sophomore studio album scheduled for July 24th into one of the most high-pressure musical drops in recent memory. The project was intended to be a triumphant celebration of a newly synthesized genre dubbed a pop, a musical framework designed to bridge the gap between continental rhythms and global mainstream pop sensibilities. Instead, the marketing campaign is operating under a cloud of intense skepticism, with every single teaser track being heavily audited by listeners looking for hidden subliminal shots or stylistic plagiarism. When the single Chanel was serviced to radio stations and began its climb up the Billboard charts, the conversation surrounding its success was instantly polarized. Supporters pointed to its #1 status on the rhythmic airplay charts as definitive proof of legitimate crossover appeal, while detractors aggressively argued that the numbers were the result of heavy label payola and artificial playlist manipulation, orchestrated by high-level executives desperate to protect their multi-million-dollar investment. The structural anxiety within the entertainment industry is further compounded by the reality that the old rules of celebrity engagement no longer apply in the arena of digital media. In previous decades, a dispute between two major musical figures would be managed through coordinated magazine features, formal television interviews, or highly controlled public relations statements issued by veteran publicists. Today, the warfare is decentralized, chaotic, and entirely dictated by algorithmic velocity. A single comment left under a TikTok video, a cryptic repost on an official page, or a specific audio selection in a short-form video recap can generate more cultural narrative than an entire traditional media campaign. The established elite understands this dynamic perfectly, utilizing a method of absolute silence combined with precise, low-key cultural actions that allow their massive fanbase to do the heavy lifting for them. By completely refusing to acknowledge the rising star by name, they effectively deny her the ultimate validation of being viewed as a direct peer, keeping her locked in the position of a challenger who has yet to fully earn her seat at the table. This dynamic has left the defensive camp in a position where they are constantly forced to over-explain their artistic choices, an exercise that often alienates the casual consumer, who is simply looking for entertaining pop music. The attempt to contextualize complex regional socio-political realities, such as the legal and cultural history of specific identity terms in South Africa, within the incredibly reductive and loud space of Western social media, has proven to be an almost impossible task. Every time a representative or an enthusiastic supporter attempts to explain the deep generational nuances of apartheid-era classification, systems to an audience that views the entire world through a singular Western lens, the explanation gets flattened, weaponized, and dismissed as an excuse for cultural insensitivity. This has created an atmosphere of profound frustration among international audiences who feel that Western pop culture consumers possess a toxic level of entitlement, demanding that global artists completely strip themselves of their native historical context the moment they enter the American market. Meanwhile, the economic machinery behind this entire operation is quietly preparing for the long-term fallout of this reputational fracture. Financial planners and touring coordinators are meticulously studying data from early ticket pre-sales and streaming metrics to determine if the digital backlash is translating into real-world financial damage. The ultimate test of a pop star's longevity is not a viral dance trend or a temporary spike in social media engagement. It is the ability to convince hundreds of thousands of individual human beings to spend their hard-earned money on a concert ticket, a piece of physical merchandise, or a premium album pre-order. If the mainstream audience decides that supporting this new project constitutes a betrayal of the legacies that shaped modern music, the financial consequences will be felt by hundreds of working professionals, from independent creative directors and choreographers to lighting technicians and distribution staff who rely on these massive global rollouts for their livelihood. The historical comparison points being thrown around by industry veterans highlight just how unprecedented this specific moment is for global music. Not since the legendary Hugh Masekela achieved historic milestones back in 1968, has a solo artist from South Africa carried this specific level of international expectation on their shoulders. To achieve back-to-back Grammy Awards for Best African Music Performance before even releasing a sophomore album is a metric that should command absolute respect across the entire landscape. Yet, the overwhelming narrative remains focused on a perceived lack of humility and an alleged eagerness to bypass the traditional dues-paying process that defined the careers of older icons. This tension exposes a fundamental generational divide within the music industry itself. An older generation that believes legacy must be built slowly through decades of grueling work and cross-industry empire building, versus a younger generation that leverages the hyperspeed of the modern internet to claim global dominance almost instantly. As we inch closer to the official summer release dates, the narrative has transcended a simple dispute between two individual artists and evolved into a referendum on the future of global pop stardom itself. The ultimate question hanging over the entire entertainment ecosystem is whether a manufactured pop product, backed by the highest level of corporate infrastructure and visual styling, can truly replace the organic cultural impact of a self-made billionaire icon who spent 20 years anchoring herself into the very fabric of global pop culture. The lines have been drawn so deeply into the digital dirt that a peaceful resolution or a coordinated public relations photo opportunity seems completely out of the question. Both camps have dug in their heels, fully convinced that their version of the story represents the absolute truth of the situation. The data can be easily twisted to support either side of the argument, leaving the casual observer to navigate a sea of conflicting metrics, biased reporting, and emotional fan edits. The corporate machinery will continue to grind forward, the streams will continue to accumulate, and the marketing campaigns will continue to deploy their assets with surgical precision. But the permanent crack that has formed within the foundation of this rising star's public perception is a reality that no amount of major label funding can ever truly erase. So, where does the final verdict actually land when the digital smoke clears? Are we witnessing the natural, unapologetic evolution of a once-in-a-generation global powerhouse who refuses to let an outdated industry scoreboard define her boundaries? Or do the critics have a legitimate point that the corporate machine manufactured this ascent so rapidly that the crown was claimed before it was ever truly earned? The lines are permanently drawn deep into the digital dirt. The metrics can be twisted to support two completely opposing realities, and a peaceful industry truce is officially off the table. But the most important voice in this entire global standoff doesn't belong to a major label executive, a high-fashion stylist, or a billionaire pop icon. It belongs entirely to you. Now it is your turn to step onto the battlefield. Smash that like button, lock in your thoughts, and drop a comment right now explaining exactly where your loyalty lies. Are you standing firmly with the established empire? Or are you backing the historic rise of a new global era? Make sure you subscribe and stay locked in, so you never miss the next breaking investigative breakdown.